Kyuubi seethed in his cage, his fur actually singed, unable to believe what had just happened. He wanted to yell at the boy for his incompetence and weak heart at not going for the killing blow against the Uchiha when their two enhanced attacks collided, but even the fox himself couldn't have predicted what happened. Sasuke didn't go for a killing blow either. He didn't even aim for the chest. And there was no way it was intentional, but Sasuke had hit, of all places, right into the seal on Naruto's stomach. Normally, this wouldn't be a bad thing. Seals on living hosts were not as easily destroyed, especially when said host had regeneration. However, the mix of the Uchiha's corrupted chakra had actually done damage to the seal. If this was because he was an Uchiha or if it was the cursed seal, Kurama didn't know. All he knew was that he felt the shock even in here. That wasn't the bad part. The bad part was the damage. Seals were complicated things, like multi-layered locks with extra contingencies possibly built in. The fourth seal was unlike other seals. It was infused with the death god's power, making so that even he, the greatest of the Biju, would die if this brat were to fall and never rise again. The seal had, unfortunately, lost part of its link to Naruto's life. The result of this was not Kyuubi being able to escape when the Uzumaki died, oh no. No, the result was the seal registered Naruto as dead, right now. Which he nearly was, but Kyuubi could bring him back even from being this close to death. Unfortunately, the seal didn't know that. All it registered was that Naruto was dead, and so was ensuring that the Biju would soon be as well. The Biju growled, sensing the death god's pull on his soul. It was just a tug, for now, but Kyuubi just knew it would start dragging him into the afterlife if he didn't do so willingly. The great demon sighed, not being able to believe this was his end. I am Kurama. Greatest of the tailed beasts. I, the one who dwarfed all my siblings in strength and size at my peak. I, who could level mountains and raised waves with a flick of my tail. I am to be laid low by a few humans with a knack for sealing. Exclamation mark single quote. He thought in outrage as he slammed his fist into the ground. I guess you were wrong. Father, he said softly, thinking back to the one human he ever liked, the Rakuto Sennin. Me and the rest aren't going to be reunited in any manner of the word. He lamented softly, feeling the pull getting harder. Cold, so death's grip really is cold, he mused to himself as he looked out of his cage, spying Naruto laying in the water, unconscious even in his mind. He blinked. His red eyes blinked as he looked at the boy, untouched by death's grip. Even without Kyuubi's chakra, he still clung to life like a starving man clung to food. Even as the great demon lay there dying from pure coincidence, the boy refused to die from all the strain and injuries the battle had caused him. Kurama's eyes slowly rose to look at the seal, right where he knew the lock was. He didn't know enough about sealing to alter the seal in any way, and even if he did, there was no way to escape the Shinigami's grip. A great hum echoed throughout the cage, ripples forming in the water as the Crimson Kitsune smirked. He didn't know enough about sealing, but he knew someone that did. He pulsed his chakra, staving off the Reaper's touch, just a bit. He had a little bit more time left before he left the world, with his own legacy. Meanwhile, Sasuke panted and sighed as he looked down at Naruto's prone form, down at the side of the river, from atop the cliffside facing the direction of the Sound Village. He actually hadn't been trying to kill Naruto in the end, deciding that he wouldn't kill Itachi just to become just like him in the end. However, the lone Uchiha was a bit unsure if Naruto would survive in his defense. It was his first time using the Curse Seal's second stage, and had hit Naruto's stomach when he meant to hit the chest, opposite side of the heart, as Naruto had survived a wound there already. He shook his head, deciding to head onwards before someone showed up and finished the job for Naruto. If he got the Mangekyo Sharingan, he'd know if Naruto had died. He stopped, just as soon as he had turned, as he felt something. He turned, slowly, looking down to see that same red chakra spreading out from Naruto by about 10 feet in all directions. It caused the river water to evaporate and turn into a cloud of steam, obscuring his view as it rose out of the valley. What now? Sasuke asked in annoyance and just a touch of dread. If Naruto pulled out a final trick, Sasuke doubted he could hold his own. He fell backwards, landing on his rear, as a pillar of blood-red chakra burst through the steam, climbing high into the heavens, shaking the earth with the sheer magnitude of its power. Sasuke could only stare, eyes wide as the malevolent chakra swept over him, almost like it was trying to choke the life out of every living thing in its reach. Meanwhile, Kakashi and Pakun stopped dead in their tracks, their eyes going wide as they felt the demonic chakra. The wind, light as it was, suddenly changed directions as the chakra reached them. Kakashi, that's... Pakun trailed off, unable to say it, almost unable to keep himself from dispelling in fear. Yeah, that's the Nine Tails all right, Kakashi confirmed with a steely look in his eye, and sweet on his brow as he looked up and saw the pillar of red chakra, high in the distance. Naruto. Sasuke, what did you do? He whispered in dread, about to continue running towards what might just be two more teammates he had failed. Wait, Kakashi, look. Pakun called out, pointing back to the pillar again with his paw. Kakashi looked back up at it, wondering what Pakun was pointing at, before looking confused as the center of the pillar started to turn a golden sun shade of yellow, steadily spreading and converting the rest of the pillar's light. Come on Pakun, we might not be too late after all, he ordered, confused but hopeful. Konoha. Lady Tsunade. Shizune yelled as she ran into the office, finding the Hokage staring out the window. I know, I felt it too, she confirmed grimly, send out messages to all our shinobi. Have them recalled to the village immediately. She ordered, Shizune leaving with a nod. Anbu. She called, her guards appearing in an instant. Monkey, have everyone high Chunin and above mobilized. Tiger, instruct all mid Chunin and below to start evacuating the civilians. Mouse, have every clan head and the village elders informed. The Kyuubi has returned, she instructed, all of them nodding and obeying. But even they were obviously nervous. Naruto. Tsunade thought sadly, keeping up a strong front, are you dead? Sarutobi's journals state that Kushina survived releasing the Kyuubi. Then again, there's little chance that your furry friend would let you live after being its prison for so long. She mused in sorrow. Jiraiya, you better get back here fast, you're the best shot we got if this really is Kyuubi returning. Valley of the End. Sasuke, like his sensei and unlike the Hokage, saw the golden chakra forming in the red pillar, spreading through the rest like a virus almost. But Sasuke, being much closer than Kakashi, could feel another change. The hate, the anger, the unholy bloodlust were all fading, but the sheer magnitude of power sweeping over the area was just as intense. His eyes dilated for a moment as the yellow chakra completely converted all the red chakra, the ground and air shaking violently for a second, before the pillar seemed to implode on itself, sending out a shockwave for miles in every direction and slowly scattering the steam. Sasuke slowly rose, barely able to bring himself to move, as he stared into the smoke, looking for any movement, any sign of, whatever had caused that much power. There was no way that Naruto had all of that. Just what does he have? What does Itachi want from Naruto? He wondered numbly, unwillingly in awe of what he had just witnessed. In an instant, he saw it. On pure instinct, he activated his Sharingan, ingraining the next few moments into his brain forever. A giant hand, with golden fur and enormous claws, rocketed out of the steam clouds, straight towards Sasuke. He jumped to his right, barely avoiding the great hand as it grasped onto the ledge. The Uchiha defector followed the length of the rather lanky arm, the strike having dispelled the smoke even more, and locked eyes with two giant slit blue eyes that were coming towards him, very rapidly, along with a set of equally giant fangs. Turning around to run as fast as he could, he soon found that his now enormous foe had leapt completely over him and landed at relatively short distance in front of him, making the Uchiha skid to a halt and back up. Just as he was about to attempt to hide in the trees from this beast, he went wide-eyed and ran back towards the valley as the golden mountain swiped its hands across the ground in a wide arc. The attack leveled the trees to the ground that weren't flung into the air, leaving no place to hide. With his back now against the ravine, he stared up at his adversary. The glaring blue eyes of a giant golden-furred fox bore down on him, with long ears that had black markings that went down and around the eyes. It was easily as big as the toad Naruto had summoned to fight Gaara. The fact that it was a giant fox, like the beast that had nearly destroyed his now former village over 13 years ago, should have registered first in Sasuke's mind. But it didn't. What registered instead were those blue eyes that stared into his very soul. There was no mistaking those eyes, even if they were slit. Naruto? He asked in disbelief and shock.